next guest is Maurice Jones, the CEO of OneTen, a coalition of leading chief executives and companies who are coming together to upskill, hire, and promote 1 million Black Americans over the next 10 years who don't yet have a four-year degree. Maurice, thank you so much for being here. I want to start first by talking about the need for Black workers. What do Black workers bring to the table, and why are those skills often overlooked?
Well, thanks. Nice to be with you. Look, Black workers bring to the table similar things that other workers bring, right? They bring skills, they bring values, they bring relationships. In addition, they bring the lived experience of Black folks in the country. And that helps to make any business, nonprofit or for-profit, one that has more truth, if you will, at the table in its products, in its services, in its operations, et cetera. Black workers bring all of this to the table.
You know, there are some barriers to entry, though, for Black workers. Can you talk a little bit about what those barriers are?
Sure. Well, let me give you one big systemic barrier. And that is this real focus on credentials as the gateway to opportunity, as opposed to a skills first approach. And so if you look at, for example, all jobs in our country that pay $60,000 or above, on paper, 79% of those jobs require that you have a four-year degree just to compete for the jobs. And when you look at all Black talent in the workforce today, ages 25 and above, what you find is that 76% of us do not yet have a four-year degree. So there's literally a systemic barrier in the form of a credential unrelated to skills that keeps folks from earning their way into the middle class in America right now. And it disproportionately impacts Black workers.
And which industries of those have been the hardest for Black Americans to break into?
You know, I would say it's not an industry piece per se. It's more of a jobs piece, right? So it's the high quality jobs that we're talking about. And when you look at the high quality jobs, the unfortunate piece is what you see is that Blacks have a hard time breaking into the high quality jobs, meaning jobs that pay a living wage, enable you to earn a family sustaining wage, and enable you to get promoted. Blacks have a tough time entering into those opportunities across job categories, across industries, because these systemic barriers are not just isolated in a particular job or in a particular industry. It's across our employment sector right now.
So I'm wondering then, when we look to your work with OneTen, I'm hoping you can share a little bit about what the work that you're doing, how you're easing those barriers to get Black workers to these jobs, to these industries.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. So our work at it is fundamentally about establishing and scaling a skills first approach to talent management across all industries, across jobs, so that skills becomes the dominant factor of success at hiring, at promotion time, at evaluation time, across the whole talent journey. So we're not just, so you're looking at me and you've got a BA requirement for a coder. And so you're gonna give me a chance to interview for that coding job because I have a BA in political science, while you've got a candidate that has an 8-week boot camp in coding who's not being interviewed. That's a bad business decision. And so what the OneTen Coalition is establishing and scaling a skills first approach. You might come about those skills through a 4-year undergraduate experience. You may come about it through a community college, through a boot camp, through an apprenticeship. The bottom line is there are multiple pathways to the skills. We need to recognize all pathways and make sure that all pathways have an opportunity to compete.
Yeah, and kind of going off of that a little bit, once we see that these workers are given that opportunity, their skills are being brought to the forefront of the conversation, less so than that degree element, what then can their bosses or their executives or the company that they're in do to continue encouraging them and set them up for success and retention?
Yeah, it's a great question. But first of all, what you see is the business case for the skills first approach is powerful. Higher retention, better fit between employee and job, better predictor of success than education, skills are, better predictor of success than experience, skills are. And what the employer, what the supervisor needs to make sure they're doing is putting mentors, having sponsors, making sure there's a transparent career pathway, not just an entry-level job, investing in reskilling and upskilling and continuing skilling so that that person has the opportunity to be the best he or she can be and to become one day the CEO of that company. All of that is a real opportunity, not just for the talent, but for that company that is currently leaving genius on the sidelines.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to take that a little bit further, though, because I know statistics are showing that $143,000 is the average difference in net wealth between a Black family and a white family. What can those same executives, those same bosses do to help close that racial wealth gap and to lead our country down a path of economic equality?
It is a great question. So look, you cannot address the wealth gap in our country, which largely breaks down along race and place, unless quality jobs are a part of it. What employers can make sure of is that Black talent and other talent of color have an opportunity to compete for the best jobs in the company, not just entry-level jobs. If you don't work on the quality jobs piece with compensation, with promotion opportunity, with the opportunity to gain equity, you will not sufficiently address the racial wealth gap. Now, there are other things, right? We also have to address home ownership rates in our country and small business ownership rates and access to capital and great schools and recreation opportunities. But fundamentally, a high quality job and career is a indispensable piece of closing the racial wealth gap in America.
Absolutely. Maurice, lastly, I just wanted to ask you, how close are you in OneTen to your goal of hiring and upskilling and promoting 1 million Black Americans within the next 10 years?
Well, now look, I just started in March of last year, but I will say from March until now, we're over 60,000 Black talent hired and promoted by a coalition of 70 plus companies into family sustaining jobs, which means those jobs pay at a minimum the living wage in the region where the job is located. So we're on a great pathway to begin with, and we need more companies and more talent and more organizations to help us equip that talent to join the journey so we can actually reach that, in fact, exceed that 1 million over 10 years. That 10 years lapses in 2030.
We have until 2030. Maurice Jones, thank you so much for being here today. Maurice Jones, CEO of OneTen.
Thanks for having me.